Good afternoon, welcome to Rundlii Gaming. So we're going to be doing another video. This particular one is on the game called Quarriers, which we are going to be showing the expansion version of it. This is a dice game that's very similar to the game of Dominion, if you've ever played Dominion or Ascension or any of the card drafting type games. The difference with this one is it tends to use dice instead of cards. So there's a lot more rolling of dice, and most of the other mechanics are very similar. Not quite exactly the same, but there are very similar mechanics to a lot of it. So it gives you a very similar feel to the game. Now with the game of Quarriers, normally with the first edition it comes in a small like tin can thing. And the reason why the expansion's really good to get is it actually has like this tray thing where you can actually organize like the different dice, and makes it just a little bit easier to actually organize it. Whereas with a big tin can that it comes in with the base edition, you throw it into one big bag, and then so every time that you play the game each time, it takes a lot more time to set up, whereas I could set this up a lot quicker because all of them are already sorted, which makes the expansion extremely good. Compared to just having the base edition. Now, with what you get to start out with, you will start out with 4 of these brown dice, and then you're going to start out with 8 of these white dice. These are probably the equivalent of like, money and stuff like that of Dominion. They will come with these little droplets on it. On the droplet itself, you'll see either 1 or 2 on these white dice. And then there's a few other symbols on this one. You could either have a pawn, a droplet. All the droplets on it have 1. And then you have like this little spin thing. The spin thing is it'll have some information on the card itself. And for this, you immediately re-roll this die and 1 other dice, which we'll explain very shortly as well. So you're going to have these 12 dice, and you're going to go ahead and put them in one of these little baggies that you get for the game itself. And let's go ahead and we're going to pretend like we're playing with 2 people here. So So what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and start by drawing our first 6 dice. And these will be random, that's why I used them back here. So I have 4 white dice, 2 brown dice. And what we can see here is that I have all 6 are droplets. In this game it's called Quiddity. Quiddity is essentially your summoning power and or your buying power. So with 6, you can spend, we might actually change this just to make it a little bit easier for explanation. We're also going to get one of these little pawn things. So the pawn itself will have some information on it as well. Now we have, 5 of the Quiddity, since we changed it, and then 1 creature, which is this pawn. So what we can do is either spend, we can basically split it however we want. We can only buy 1 dice per round unless something allows us to buy an additional. And we can also use this towards casting some of our other stuff here. So let's say that I wanted to go ahead and put him in play. So the pawn we'll go over more information of. I like to throw the Quiddity like under them so I know that I used it to cast this particular creature. But I have 4 left. So what we'd actually do is we'd look at these different cards, and they each have a different cost on it. So let's say if you wanted to buy one of these pieces here, or one of these dice, you'll have to pay whatever the cost is on it. The cost for each of these dice will be in the top left corner. So this one will cost you 4, this one will cost you 9, this one will cost you 5, this one will cost you 4, 4, 6, 5, 3, 2, 9, 4. So some of these are going to definitely cost a lot more. For example, this dragon here is going to cost you a lot more than, like, say this, one of these frog things here. So, or the goblins. So, like, for example, you can get a scavenging goblin, which only costs you 2, but he's not nearly as powerful as, like, this big dragon. So we'll put him in play, and we're going to spend this 4 here, and we'll just grab one of these portal things. Now, on the card itself, it's going to give you different information. So what you can do is you can look on the bottom of the card here, and it's going to show you what's on each of the 6 sides of the dice. So for example, with this one, there is 1 quiddity on the far side here, and then there are 5 different other things here. And with this, there's like the little portal type symbol, and then there's either a 1 or a 2 on it. So if you roll the dice, let's say if I roll this dice and I get a number 2 on it with the portal, I will then draw 2 dice from my bag, and then I get to roll those. Any dice you buy will go to your use pile. You will not be able to roll it this round, so it goes to your use pile, and for whenever you put it back in your bag, then you can pretty much get the chance of pulling this one. Also, at the end of your turn, you can decide to take one of the dice you just currently used and discard it completely. So let's say if I don't want this brown dice, I can get rid of it, put it back into what they call the wilds, which is this area here. Now I have 1 creature in play. He is now going to attack all other players. If they have any creatures out, it's basically going to do damage to their creatures. So this pawn here is going to have certain numbers on it. Now the top left number here is going to be the mana cost. So for him to come out, it takes 1 mana. Top right is going to be his attack. So he has 1 attack. The bottom right is his defense. His defense is 2. So it takes 2 damage to kill him. He does 1 damage, and then he takes 1 to actually come out. At which point I can now end my turn. Now the goal of these creatures is that if it comes back to my turn and this creature's still in play, I get victory points equal to whatever its victory point value is. In this case, in this game, it's called Glory. So, for example, with this brown card, you can look at to see what he's worth. He is worth 1 glory. So if it makes it back to my turn, he will give me 1 glory, or victory point if you want to call it that. So let's say, since I ended my turn, these 5 dice are now in my use pile, and this player here is going to draw. So they also got 4 white and 2 brown. So they did get a 2 on one of these. All the white dice right now are 1s except for the 1, 2. And then the brown one was also 1. And they also got a pawn. So we're gonna start off with saying that we're gonna put this pawn in play for this player here on our left. Now, as I said, the pawns all have the same stat line. Some of these other creatures have different stat lines depending on which one you put into play, because they have different levels sometimes. So he's going to do 1 damage to each other opponent. So let's say he does 1 damage to me now. My creature has 2 defense, so it's not going to actually kill my creature. So mine will survive. Mine does not attack his back. Whenever you put a creature in play, it does its attack then, but it does not take damage itself. So these 2 will not, like this pawn here that I just put in play, is not going to kill this other pawn. So we know for sure that it's going to survive until it gets back to the turn. However, let's say if I were to have rolled up 2 of these pawns, and I put both of them in play. Now I know that each of these have 1 attack, so I'm going to do 2 attack to my side over here. So now I can divvy out the damage to one of my creatures, and once that creature dies, it goes to the next creature, and then till that one dies. So let's say in this case I have 2 damage coming over to this one here. It will kill my pawn on that one. But since we didn't actually roll that, we're going to pretend that didn't happen. But if we did roll 2 pawns, those 2 pawns could have killed this pawn. But since only one did, only 1 damage is going to hit this side. Alright, so this player here now just put his pawn in. And then he still has 5 left. So we're going to go ahead and grab one of these trees. Since we're going to go ahead and play with some spells, because these 3 here, because when you start out the game, these 4 cards here are always going to be the same. These are in every game you play. The next 3 are going to be spells, so you choose 3 spells randomly. They have to be different dice, so that way you can put the different dice down. And then you're going to have 7 creatures after that. So, since I survived, and we're going to get rid of a dice for this player as well. So it goes back to this player. This creature survived for the round. He gets discarded, and then gets a victory point. On a 2-player game, you're trying to get up to 20 victory points. So it's going to take a little bit of time. If you're playing a 3-player game, it'll be 15. If you're playing a 4-player game, it'll be 12. So as you play more players, you need fewer points in order to succeed. So this player now is going to draw the remaining 6 dice of their bag here, roll them out. In this case, I did roll actually 2 pawns. I'm going to go ahead and throw both those in play to kill the pawn on this side. So these 2 are both going to do damage. So 2 damage will kill the 2 health for this one. So I now have 2 in play, and I have 2 left, which right now, only thing I can afford is a goblin, so we're going to take a goblin. And those all go to the discard pile, and these 2 will be in play. Now we're going to go back to this player, because this one ended their turn. So with this one, we can re-roll this dice and 1 other dice. So let's say that this player really wasn't too concerned about killing their creatures. They're going to go ahead and re-roll both these brown dice. Get another round one, so you get to do it again. Alright, so now they are at 6. So with the 6, they can buy something bigger. So basically they're trying to get some bigger creatures out. So at this point, let's say if they're going to buy this one, they can then get rid of a dice as well during their turn. They didn't kill anything, so these 2 are going to score when it comes back to their turn. So brings them to 3. And it's basically going to keep going back and forth here. Now each of these creatures are going to have very different rules. And there's going to be different locations for different things in the game as well. Now it does come in a pretty decent book here. So it does explain a lot of the rules pretty decently, though some of the expansions kind of did make things a little bit more complicated than it used to be, because now they have more zones and things like that as well. Because you have, like, as far as the map goes, your use pile is everything that's been used, anything that's been bought since you've thrown things in the bag. So as I was buying dice, you're going to throw it in your use pile. Then once you've used every dice in your bag, you then throw all of it in your bag, and that becomes part of your bag itself. Your spend pile is any dice you've already used. So let's say if I summoned a creature, then he's currently part of... Well, he'll actually go to the ready area, but let's say if I were to use a spell, because like this person over here grabbed this tree, then that goes to your spend pile. You used that ability for, the benefit that you're going to get from it. So whenever you cast a spell, you gain 3 quiddity. So this is a really good one for getting lots of extra quiddity, so you can actually buy bigger stuff, or maybe summon different creatures, or whatever you want to use it for. But it gives you 3 if you cast a spell. Whereas some of them are reactions. In reaction to you doing something, I can cast a spell and do something in return. So that's a spend pile. And also if you use any of these things to cast anything, you just throw it into your spend pile, because you've used that quiddity, so you can no longer use that quiddity again. And then you have your active pool. active pool are any dice that you're going to be rolling for the next turn. So let's say after you end your turn, you'll now draw 6 dice out of the bag and put it in your active pool. Some dice allow you to manipulate that. So with the active pool, some dice might return back to your active pool at the end of the turn, so you may not have 6, but you might have more than 6. Or some people may have, creatures or spells that may mess up your active pool. And then that's most of the setup of the game itself. I mean, it's a very simplistic game. Now, the game itself comes with lots and lots and lots of creatures. So, these are all the different kinds of spells you can get just for those 3. You also have a huge stack of creatures that you could shuffle, and you just want to make sure that they're all different. You don't want, 2 frogs because you don't have dice for 2 frogs. So if you want to get frogs, you're going to have to, if you drew another one of these, you draw until you find something different from what you have out there. But there are a lot of different types of dice. Because as you can see, there's a lot that I have not used in this particular game. So, especially with the expansion, it adds quite a bit of dice on it. If you're using just the base set, there's not as many creature types, but there's still quite a bit in it. So as I said, this game is very similar to very similar to Dominion. Very quick, easy to play. It has more to do with dice rolling as compared to Dominion, which is a lot of card draw and decks themselves. So otherwise, that's the lowdown of how to play Quarriors. Hope you've enjoyed the video, and definitely watch for more videos in the future of how to play different games. I'll be posting them on the YouTube channel over the course of the next few weeks, and they'll just be different games that I currently own or that I know someone that does own, and I'll just kind of display how to play those different games. Otherwise, thank you for watching Rundlii Gaming. You have a good day.